Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this narration of the web series The Nature of Predators. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 38. Memory Transcription Subject, Governor Tava of the Venlo Republic. Date, Standardized Human Time, October 6, 2136. There was a heaviness in my heart as the 4 diplomats were ushered into the briefing room. The Mazik had been creating quite a scene outside, accusing his human hosts of kidnapping Laulo. Apparently, no amount of tact could prevent that. The uplifts disappeared without noting within minutes. President Scupo's dramatic theories, and the predators intended to poke and prod every diplomat, were generating panic amongst the others. That meant we had to brief everyone about the sabotage and the missing craft. The information needed to be turned over to the media as soon as possible, too, since Scupo's outburst occurred in front of live cameras. How could we persuade such a paranoid individual? His mind longed to believe that humanity was up to something. I wasn't sure how much of this briefing the Civ-Kit would remember, given that she was drugged with this light sedative. The Mazik, who had been quite gentle with Axley, had to carry her into the room. The humans couldn't breathe without spooking the fluffy representative. Noah had accused the Civ-Kit Grand Herd of having a poor choice of personnel, and I began to agree. I should order her to return home and request that the herd send someone else. With behavior like this, it's impossible to establish any relationships with her species. Tosa was oddly quiet, and her gaze darted across the waiting predators. Despite her disdain for uplifts, her snooty attitude slipped when Laulo disappeared from their ranks. The Nevok had been trying to hawk her planet's refined metals and microchips to any Terran that would listen, but now the interest had subdued. Even Chalson looked curious as to why Yodel had vanished from their ranks, though he had more of an inkling of what was going on. We had told him, in no uncertain terms, that someone on the ship could be involved. A scientist of the Zeridian's intellect might put the pieces together. I knew from the beginning that we couldn't trust you predators, Kupo spat, as he took a seat on the floor. You were just waiting to get us here to turn on us. Chalson's whiskers twitched. You should wait to hear what they're going to tell you before you start with that nonsense. It's not what you think. Wait, you know, so Tava and Nova has been selecting who to spin their yarns with, who to hide things from, Tosa growled. The Mazik president flared his trunk. Half of the shit comes from the human's mouth is a lie. Who knows why they want to manipulate us? I bet it's about control. All their species has shown they care about is power. The UN diplomats fidgeting with their visor, clearly uncomfortable with the accusatory rhetoric. This couldn't have been their expectation when they greeted a landing party. I winced as I saw the anger on the Terran general's face. They lacked the poise and the patience for their diplomatic counterparts. It was tough for them to shrug off the insult. You know what? Feck the Federation. You can go feck right back to your ships. General Zal stood from his chair and leaned across the table towards Mazik, present. All you care about is where your person's eyes are in their head. General Jones reclined in her seat. And there's the friendly species Zal, who needs enemies with friends like these. Axley's chest was racked with sobs as the primate's tone escalated. The military humans shifted their annoyance to the sniveling animal, their binocular eyes smoldering with indignation. The general's tolerance for predatory bigotry had been tested for the last time. And you, with the white pelt, you can't even look at us. Why are you here? Chinese general spat. Jones bared her teeth, intentionally pointing at the Civ-Kit. Get a grip. You're embarrassing your race. To be honest, if the brunt of the human's anger was directed at me, I would make a clam up too. When their jaw muscles were clenched, it showcased their flesh-tearing bite force. The lack of fur made protruding bones and bulging veins more obvious. Translucent skin combined the rage bubbling beneath the surface. I can tell they're in control, but I don't think any other alien can. That's enough! All of you are acting like children, I screeched. Let's agree that we've all messed up in one way or another. We shared our information with Chalson because he's the only one not looking for an excuse to spout predator nonsense. You lot just proved my point. Noah squeezed my paw under the table. Also, you guys tend to freak out at the slightest sign of danger. It was hard enough to keep everyone calm on that ship. The Nebek diplomat sighed. You get one chance to explain yourself. The truth! Anti-human plotters in the Federation tried to kill us all with cooling shaft malfunction. Rissal's ship is missing, probably for the same reason, I replied. We're trying to figure out who's responsible and hold them accountable, Noah added. Tosa snorted. And you think it's the little primitive Lalo? The Terran ambassador tensed beside me. Clearly recent events hadn't stopped the defense reaction to any primitive jabs. I gave Noah a look that warned him to not interfere. He swallowed hard and inhaled a series of deep breaths. This was not the time for him to give to the Nevok an earful, especially when she was the most level-headed person here, not named Chowson. I offered a non-committal tail swish. We're suspicious enough to ask questions. It was plain to see from the representatives' faces that they were worried about how those questions were being asked. I swiped a few buttons on my holopad and cast the security feed of the cell of the projector. The marsupial was seated alone on a bench with his head in his paws. It was the predator's suggestion to let him wait for a while, to give him time to marinate, was their phrase. I didn't like that wording, but as long as the humans didn't suggest physical harm, I was happy to let them try out their techniques. The feisty uplift raised his head and stared at the camera. I know you're listening, Ambassador Noah. I can see that red light blinking. I want to talk. Too bad, I don't, the astronaut muttered to himself. The Mazik president settled down once he saw the Yodel in pristine condition. He was surprised that he hadn't suggested that humanity could have staged the sabotage. Cooper was a strange case, and it was tough to pinpoint what he hoped to gain from diplomacy, telling the Terran military to their faces that he thought all humans were avaricious liars that could only stem from a remarkable disdain. The fact that their leader came himself could be chalked up to attempted honorability. Cooper didn't want anyone else to die for what he believed was a foolish gamble. Was it simply a desperation play, like he told Noah? I didn't know if he would ever see humanity as anything more than predators. General Dones tapped her earpiece. Governor, the United Nations scout ship recovered a data buoy within research perimeter. Almost missed it on sensors. My ears perked up. Standard Federation vessels were equipped with 2 data buoys, which could be ejected if a ship was in distress. They contained information about the ship's function and could be encoded with a message from the captain. The buoy emitted a distress signal for a week, or as long as any nearby starlight replenished its power. Common scenarios for their usage included emergency landing, mechanical failures, or after sustaining damage in battle. It could offer insight into a vessel's fate, or point rescuers in the right direction. I was uncertain whether to view the buoy's deployment as a positive or a negative sign. It meant that the ship had incurred trouble, but it also meant Rissal had been aware of the problem before a drive meltdown. Maybe they were in the process of mending considerable damage. All that mattered was whether they were alive. All right, was your team able to extract the data? I asked. Yes. There appears to be a short video log included. Jones scrolled through the file archives and tapped the mentioned item. Shall I clear these interlopers out so that we can review what it says in private? My ears flattened against my head. They're not interlopers. At some point, we have to start acting like friends. I'm counting on humanity to take the first step. I muted the feed from Lalo's cell and moved to the window in the background processing. The American general frowned as I gestured to the projector. Her gaze drifted to the skeptical Mazik. That first impression didn't make her eager to share intelligence. There was no telling what was on the video file, and it might not take much for individuals to jump to conclusions. A smog-filled cavern was depicted on the projector, with a delirious Kolshian at the helm. Rissal dabbed a damp rag against his forehead. The internal temperature must be skewering. The smoke was so thick that the grey tendrils seemed to curl around the Federation officer's form. His orange eyes were listing and unfocused. I glimpsed at a few Federation diplomats behind him. All were wearing vac suits to avoid toxins. That would only be good while the half-day's oxygen supply lasted. Upon closer inspection, Rissal had set the helmet down out of the camera's focus. He must have taken it off so that he could be seen and heard on the recording. This is Rissal of the Kolshian Commonwealth. A few hours ago, we noticed signs of a fire in the warp drive compartment. With the core ablaze, repairs were impossible. The officer burst into a coughing fit and paused to catch his breath. Emergency shutdown has been successful. Once it reaches a certain temperature, it's going to go off like a bomb. As panicked as Russell had been around humans, his tranquility in the face of impending death was remarkable. I don't know how he kept the diplomats calm, or why they hardly reacted to those words. It helped that their ship didn't have a predator around to add fuel to the instinctual fear. Still, perhaps we just couldn't hear their cries from beneath the suits. The Kolshian pilot grimaced. I know we must be mere hours at most, but I'm at peace with my death. I spent my final days seeking the first real chance the Federation's had at ending the war in my lifetime. Isn't that a beautiful thought? Water swelled in my eyes as the finality of their predicament sank in. Russell's contributions to the galactic peace was monumental and rarely received full acknowledgement. When push came to shove, he found the courage to support humanity. It was his belief in diplomacy, encouraging us to attend the summit, that led Noah to speak to the Federation. If it weren't for that heroic veteran, it would still be two of us against the galaxy. Sovlin's actions could have been the catalyst for war. Humanity would never have seized the opportunity to voice their side of the story, or open themselves up to new partners. Russell must be the person who saved Earth, who deserves as much credit as my dear Noah, I mused. There are some people who want to silence my version of the events, regarding the torture of the human prisoner. I want it known that all I regret is that I didn't act sooner, he sputtered. That I never had the courage to check in on Marcel and apologize for my part in it. I hope he is doing well. The Kolshian could hardly speak between coughing outbursts. His eyelids fluttered with exhaustion. He huddled over the console and rested a grasper over the send button. The lack of clean oxygen had pushed him to the brink of unconsciousness. Russell gritted his teeth. Humans! If you see this, I remember what your leader said about desiring coexistence. I hope people give you a chance, and that you won't lose faith. The things you endure would be too much for any other species. But you are not them. You're strong. You're predators. Maybe that is a good thing. The Terran ambassador's mouth was agape with horror as we observed Russell pour at his throat. This was someone we had traveled with for days, who offered us a unique perspective on Federation history. It wasn't all that long ago the Kolshian greeted us in the hangar bay and thanked Noah for reminding him of what courage felt like. Time's up, Russell whined in a pained voice. Kick some ox or ass for me, humans. Leave her a little less ugly in the galaxy. I have faith in you. The transmission cut out with a final beep and was replaced by a grim static. The Federation diplomats looked aghast at what we had just witnessed. Even Axley was showing signs of lucidity. The Terran generals dropped their scowls and bowed their heads in a solemn display of grief. There was something sobering about a person's last words. We have to help them, Cooper spat. Send a ship. Ambassador nodded. I will fly it myself if I have to. Those are our allies, and they're in trouble. General Jones's lips curved down. This video was time-stamped 3 days ago. There's no vessels and sensors, only a few stray energy readings, which suggests... The only trace we'd find of the occupants was the atom scattered across the local space. Humanity's first interactions with this O6 species would be an unenviable task of explaining how their diplomats died. I didn't know how we would convince their leadership no fault for the predators. Condolences and words might cut it. We need concrete proof. The words of the crow cattle uttered that anyone who stood with humanity was dead to them lingered in my ears. It was difficult for me to process that parties in the Federation would murder civilians for the crime of speaking to predators. I wouldn't blame our new allies for not wanting to believe it was their long-standing friends. My calls flung the prison surveillance back onto the projector. I was trembling in outrage. A taped confession would be a start, even if others accused us of coercion. Forget waiting. I switched to the intercom function and leaned into my holopad. Why did you betray us, Lalo? Why? The Yodel glanced up with a hopeful expression. I am so sorry. Saving our shuttle seemed like enough to spark gratitude. I just wanted to impress Noah, so humanity could discard us, like everyone else. A chorus of gasps echoed from our Federation contingent. The Predator generals looked mystified by his rationale, and their eyes narrowed to intimidating slits. None of us expected a straightforward confession, especially when I was hoping that we'd pegged the marsupial wrong. Impress me. You killed Russell and almost killed us. Noah snarled over my shoulder. You're a homicidal psychopath. Lalo blinked. What? Were you not listening to what I said before? I didn't do it. I just saw who did and used the opportunity to, prove myself. The humans squinted. Why should we believe that? Why wouldn't you come forward straight away? Murmurs of agreement from the alien diplomats. It was bizarre to see the Mezek nodding along with the Terran argument. But it was natural to suspect the Leotl's claim. On one paw, it seemed like the lousy attempt to dodge responsibility. On the other, it made more sense than an uplift plotting a complex technological scheme. The Takan representative saw them too, and tried to intervene. Didn't you wonder why one friendly species never made it to the shuttle? Lalo hissed. Besides, we were on their territory. If I spoke up sooner, we would have never left Alpha. Confusion stirred in my chest. You're saying that it was... The uplift switched his tail. The Kolshians wanted the human ambassador, and his friend's dead. Not me. Who would have unfettered access to the shuttles? Who planned the whole trip and saw Russell as a loose end? I fell back on my haunches, stunned to silence. Those words synced with the facts a little too perfectly. If Lalo was telling the truth, a touch DNA sweep by the core should corroborate it. However, it didn't add up. Why an influential species would grant humanity a public audience and then seek a military alliance, only to kill us? Was it even possible for our predators to track down a Kolshian official and demand answers? Chief Nicodas was secure, at the heart of Federation territory. As much as I wanted to avenge the fallen vessel, nothing good could come from blazing a trail of destruction. My expertise would focus on diplomatic side, salvaging our relation with the victimized species. The choice of how to respond to the personal and cowardly attack belonged to the humans. End of story. I would quickly like to thank our Tier 5 patrons and channel members: Casper Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, it's difficult to pronounce, Lord Arishikal, Dragzoon W.R.E, and Arcadian. Thank you very much.